Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Everybody okay?
Yes, Maharaj.
You're
Yes,
very
Maharaj.
quiet. It's not very loud, you're not speaker.
Am I not loud enough, did you say?
It's not very loud.
Oh, right, okay. I'm on maximum. Okay, I'll just have to speak.
Sorry, Maharaj.
You're also not, maybe mine, just a minute.
It must be yours, Maharaj. Bhakti Mataji is loud enough my end.
Okay. Ah, that's where it is, yeah. Okay, so we can start. Do you want to do a little chanting before? Well, there's only 3 of us.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'll
Sure.
chant for 5 minutes. We're just going to 5 minutes to let everybody come in. We can always go 5 minutes over if necessary. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so last week we were speaking from chapter 7, 8, and part of 9. And the second canto. And so that's better. Yes, so in the first 3 chapters of second canto, we spoke about generally an outline of the superiority of bhakti. We spoke about Ashtanga Yoga, if you remember, and how to practice it, on the neophyte level and on the advanced level. And then we talked about, karma yoga or demigod worship, and then we concluded that, this is for less intelligent people, and ultimately whether we've got desires, whether we desire liberation, whether we desire material enjoyment, we should still perform bhakti. There's a famous verse, Akarma, Sarva-karma, and Moksha-karma. Akarma has no desire, Sarva-karma full of material desires, and Moksha-karma means desiring liberation. Whatever we desire, bhakti is still the most expedient process, so we should adapt it. And then we started talking about creation. We went on to the topic of creation. Parikshit Maharaj started asking questions, more questions. And anyway, we now asked 6 questions which were answered through, chapters 4 to 7. Characteristics of the universe, the shelter of the universe, the creation of the universe, the ingredients of the universe, conservation, how it's, stored after it's wound up, and what does the universe depend upon? Okay, and then that was from chapters 4 to 7, and then from chapters 8 to 10, which we're doing now, we're talking about Maharaj Parikshit's questions, which most of them were in chapter 8, actually, which we've just done. And so in chapter 9, we'll start to answer them. And we answered them up to a point, didn't we? We got up to, let's have a look. We got up to Catur Sloki. How, Lord Vishnu, how Brahma, it went and he started explaining the situation of what the situation was in which this process of creation was explained to Brahma. It talks about how he came on the lotus petal, if we remember, and the Lord vibrated the words tapa, and so he performed tapasya, and by that tapasya he got the ability to create. So we're saying that that's the all-important thing. That tapa was the initiation of Brahma by the Lord. So there's, it's more or less saying that unless there's an execution of following principles when we take initiation, which is just tapasya, then it's not really an initiation. That's the main thing. And so, Lord Vishnu was very satisfied with this tapasya, so he gave Brahma the ability to create. And not only that, he performed it so nicely that he showed him the whole of Vaikuntha. Just like Dhruva Maharaj, he performed very severe tapasya and Lord Vishnu appeared and immediately showed himself. So this is the value of this chanting. We chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. That's our tapasya, isn't it? And to follow, that's our main tapasya. If we follow this process of very carefully chanting the holy name, then we can follow the 4 regulative principles and we get Krishna's mercy. Also, mercy, it means we're protected from the material energy and we're given the inspiration to serve. That's where it's all coming from. So, where do we start? Yeah, Lord. Then Lord Vishnu said, "Penance is my heart. Even I have to perform. Even I perform penance in order to create this world, maintain it, and then wind it up." So this is Kanadakashai Vishnu speaking. You know, every aspect of Godhead has some particular activity, but Krishna is delegating that activity. Krishna is the only one who's completely without any, responsibility. He's got full responsibility for the whole creations, but he delegates that responsibility through other forms of Godhead. And so Krishna plays the flute. So then, because he was satisfied, he gave him, Lord Vishnu gave him, Garbhodakashai Vishnu gave Brahma, it says, a benediction. And so Lord Brahma, he asked for the benediction, which is in the 4 seed verses, the questions, in 26, verse 26. He says, please tell me about your material and spiritual forms. And then in question 2, in 27-28, and question 3 also, how are your various spiritual and material energies working? And question 3, what are your activities in relation to the material and spiritual energies? And question 4, please bestow your mercy for my execution of your instructions without pride and bondage. So these, I paraphrase them, probably in your purport. I haven't got the book open here. But in your purports, in your translation, it'll be slightly differently worded, that's all. Is that right? 26, let's have a look. In spite of that, my Lord, I am praying to you to kindly fulfill my desire. May I please be informed.
Maharaj, sorry, which is 2.8 number?
No, 9.
2.9.
Your transcendental form, you assume the mundane form, although you have no such form. So it's, I think it's more simplified in the paraphrase, actually.
2.9, which chapter?
Chapter 9, Mataji.
Chapter 9.
Canto 2, chapter 9, text 26.
Text 26, okay.
So these questions will be answered, from verse 33 to verse 36. But verse 31 is an important question, or an important statement by Lord Vishnu. He says, Jnanam paramam guyam me tad vijnanam samanvitam sarahasyam tarangam cha rihana gaditam maya. Krishna's personality, I've got to say, knowledge about me as described in the scriptures is very confidential, and it has to be realized in conjunction with devotional service. The necessary paraphernalia for that process is being explained to me. You may take it up carefully. So this verse is actually broken down by the Acharyas because it's pointing out the different aspects of knowledge. Like beginning of knowledge, there are 3 aspects. One is sambandha. That means understanding our situation, and understanding what we're trying to achieve. So this is explained in the verse 33. You can read verse 33. Somebody want to read it?
I can read it, Maharaj.
Um,
Just the translation?
yeah, you can read the verse if you want.
Okay. Aham evasam evagre nanyad yat sad asat param paschat aham yat etakcha yovasiste yeta sosmi aham. Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before the creation, when there was nothing but myself. Nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead. And after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead.
So this is Jnanam, Jnanam Paramam Bhuyame, which is the first point in text 31. I'm just going into a little bit of detail because these are important verses. This is sets the seed for all the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Jnanam Sambandha, knowledge of, the goal, not knowledge of our position. This is spoken more about by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in the Chaitanya Chaitamrita, in the Madhya Lila, 25th chapter, text 99 and 100. And so basically what's being said here is that Jnanam is it is a sambandha. Then the next one, 2934, is talking about how Krishna is a reflection in the material energy. And if we see anything in this material world, which is separate from Krishna, we're not actually seeing properly. Even everything in this material world, we'll read about this in a little bit, is a reflection of Krishna's energy in the spiritual world. And so there's a connection. And when we don't connect it with Krishna, this is called, illusion or maya. And so this is realization of the verse 33. 33 is saying that Krishna existed before the creation, is existing during the creation, and is existing after the creation wound up. And so he's more or less saying there's nothing but me. So
can I ask you a question on this?
Yeah.
When Krishna says that I existed before creation, we're talking about the material world, isn't it? Not the spiritual world.
He existed before the creation of anything. He's the original. But he's talking specifically about the material world because he's talking to us. We're in the material world. But he's the source of everything. Ishvara Parama Krishna. Satchit Ananda Vigraha. So both spiritual world and the material world emanate from him. But, let's talk about the material world. That's what we're dealing with here.
But Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that we are eternally existing. Where does that fit in, Maharaj?
Well, eternity, Prabhupada explains it like this, that it's such a long time that we can't trace out when we actually came into existence or when we didn't. In one respect, we're Krishna's energy, so Krishna's energy is eternally existing. But how that energy manifests is up to Krishna. He can manipulate it. What's it say? Natasyakaram charanam ta vidyate. Natat shabdikas charanam ta drishyate. Rasha shakter vividaiva suryate. Svabhika jnana balakriyacha. So automatically by Krishna's will, Parasya Shakti, these different energies are manifesting and performing different activities. And we are one of those energies. So because we're an eternal energy, we can say, you know, we've existed all the time. So that's one way to look at it. But Prabhupada said we've been, you know, it's such a long time that it's eternal. That's how Prabhupada. Because it's something that, you know, it's difficult for us to understand with our minute brain. We see a beginning and an end to everything. And unless, you know, when somebody talks about eternity, what does it mean? We don't know. It's always existed. But Krishna's, but you know, Eko Bahu Sham. From the one becomes many. So there is a start to our existence in that respect. Eko Bahu Sham. So you can see it in both ways that, you know, it's such a long time that we can't trace out, or that, you know, Krishna's energies are existing along with him. Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Maharaj? Oops.
Yeah.
Would that mean that there's a finite number of people? If we've always existed, that means all of it's the same number of entities.
Mataji, Krishna's ever expanding. Everything that's expanding is not static. You know, so, you know, the number of living entities, just look out into your garden and you can't, you know, if you live for a million years, you wouldn't be able to count all the living entities in your garden. You know what I mean? It's like, what's the point of the question? It's just, you know, it's like, it's still a material conception. We're trying to nail it. I mean, and then we can put on this T-shirt, there are so many living entities in this world, you know. But,
Thank you.
you know, it's unlimited. It's unlimited. That's what we need to understand, that Krishna exists unlimitedly. You know, and if it's anything like this coronavirus, you know what I mean? It expands exponentially at some point. So if you can imagine, if Krishna's, I'm not saying it is, but if it's expanding at the same rate as this coronavirus, it's pointless asking the question. It's just like so vast, it's like unbelievable. Otherwise, everything would be expanding. There'd be more room for us. You know, the universe, you know, both material and spiritual creation are expanding, but there's not any more living entities, so we get more room. Land prices go down. Is that right? Anyway, that's as much as I can answer it, because that's my realization. If you want any more information.
Thank you, Maharaj. I think it's beyond our understanding.
Maharaj, can we ask about, you know, this verse? Could it be taken by the Mayavadis as being, is this the verse they would sort of think that because Krishna is only one?
Well, let's read the purport and find out. I think I just want to tell you that the next one is Vijnanam, which is, you know, understanding how Krishna is in this material world and also here before and after creation. And then the third one is 35. This is actually Prema Bhakti. It talks about Prema Bhakti. And 36 talks about Sadhana Bhakti. So we'll explain that in a minute. So let's go to the purport of verse 33. And I've highlighted some, we're not going to read the whole one, but seeing as you've asked, if we go to the bottom of the first chapter, it's talking about I. But in the last sentence starts with but. But we must note carefully that in the Vedic literature there are two I's, or accepted as only in the sense of quality.
Which verse is it? Is it 34?
33.
33. I am looking in 33. I can't find it.
The end of the first paragraph.
Yeah.
But if you look carefully, last sentence.
The last sentence.
Anyway, I'll read the
But
whole.
we must note carefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found it. But we must note carefully.
Maybe, since this question's asked, maybe Lalita Mataji, you can read this whole first paragraph.
Whole first paragraph, okay.
33.
We should note very carefully that the personality of Godhead is addressing Lord Brahma and specifying with the great emphasis himself, pointing out that it is he, the personality of Godhead, who existed before the creation. It is he only who maintains the creation, and it is he only who remains after the annihilation of the creation. Brahma is also a creation of the Supreme Lord. The impersonalists put forth the theory of oneness in the sense that Brahma, also being the same principle of I, because he is an emanation from the I, the absolute truth, is identical with the Lord, the principle of I, and that there is thus nothing more than the principle of I, as I explained in this verse. Maharaj, I am not able to understand.
Even if we accept the argument of the impersonalists, it is to be admitted that the Lord is the creator I. You know, the impersonal say I, it means all of us. We say I, we're all one. But here it's explaining how there's different I's, as different individuals. And that Brahma is the created I. So there's two. Therefore, there is a difference between the two I's, namely the predominator I and the predominator. Therefore, there is still two I's, even if we accept the argument of the impersonalists. The impersonalists say it's all one I, but there's a conversation going on here between two I's. That's all it means. Yeah? Anyway, if you try to understand the impersonalists, you'll go crackers. Because they are crackers, they just twist things to suit themselves. It makes sense to everybody. If the impersonalist didn't say anything, everybody would just take it. That's what it means. There's two people. But, you know, this is why it's so dangerous to read their nonsense, that we start to even question our own common sense. And that's what we're doing here. It's common sense. Nityo nityanam chetanas chetanam eko bahunam yobhiradatikam. You know, is Nityo is the same supreme eternal Nityanam amongst all eternals with an S on the end. Chetanas, the supreme conscious, Chetananam amongst all conscious living entities. That's what it's saying. So we're both, then it says we're both eternal and we're both conscious. But the singular I is the creator, and the created I's are the plural numbers. Chetanas, Chetananam. Nityo is one, Nityananam is many, like that. That's all it's saying. It is a simple truth. The Father creates or begets a son, and the Son also creates many other sons. And all of them may be one as human beings, but at the same time, the Father, the Son, and the grandsons are all different. The Son cannot take the place of the Father, nor can the grandsons. Simultaneously, the Father, the Son, and the grandsons are one and different also. As human beings, they are not one, but as relatives, they are different. As human beings, they are one, but as relatives, they are different. Therefore, the relatives of the Creator and the created are the predominator and the predominated have been differentiated in the Vedas by saying that the predominator I is the feeder of the predominated, and thus there is a vast difference between the two I's. If it doesn't rain, we don't eat. We're not in charge of eating. But here it's saying he's the one who's sustaining everybody. Eko Bahusham, everybody comes from him. Yovadadati Kamam, he's sustaining everybody. If we just think about it, if it don't rain, we don't eat. We're not sustaining anybody. So there's a difference between what it's saying in the Shastras and between our ability. So we cannot be the supreme, just by common sense. But they say it's all in the mind. All right, if it's all in the mind, we don't need anything to eat, really. We can get by without. Anyway, these arguments go on and on. So just read Prabhupada's books and don't get into the impersonalist thing, otherwise you'll finish up tying yourself in a knot. Trying to, think the way an impersonalist does, and that's the last thing we want to do. Anyway. So we'll go to the next point and then not the second paragraph, but the third paragraph at the beginning. So another feature of this verse is a statement that the Supreme Truth is Bhagavan, or the personality of Godhead. The personality of Godhead and his kingdom have already been explained. The kingdom of God is not void as conceived by the impersonalists. The Vaikuntha planets are full of transcendental variegatedness, including the 400 residents of those planets with great opulence of wealth, prosperity, and there are even aeroplanes and other amenities required for high-grade personalities. He's just been speaking about how he showed Brahma the Vaikuntha planets. So even in the Vaikuntha planets, there's variegated living entities there. The existence of the personality of Godhead at the end of the paragraph implies the existence of Vaikuntha Lokas, as the existence of a king implies the existence of a kingdom. We just have to think about our situation and, our personal life and motivations. These are all coming from God. He's the same in that respect, in quality. And, we have relationships in this world. And so, God's a person. Why should he be without relationships? That's basically what it's saying. In Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada says in one purport, if we analyze ourselves and our own situation, we can understand God. Anyway, I think we've gone into enough. Okay, so we can go on to the next one. Somebody want to read the next one? 34. Don't all jump at once.
O Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, it is without relation to me, has no reality. Know it as my illusionary energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness.
So this is not, it seems a little bit complicated. Reflection in darkness. And so Prabhupada explains it in this way, that the same paragraph of the purport, misconceiving one thing for another thing is called illusion. For example, accepting a rope as a snake is illusion, but the rope is not false. This material world is not false. The rope as it exists in front of the illusion person is not at all false, but accepting it as a snake is illusory. Therefore, this material manifestation is not false, but the wrong conception of accepting the material manifestation as being divorced from the energy of the Lord is illusion. And this illusory conception is called the reflection of the reality in the darkness of ignorance. That's how it's explained. The reflection of the reality in the darkness of ignorance. And then it explains at the end of that paragraph, in the material world, the light of the sun is also not independent, nor is that of the moon. The real source of light is the Brahmajyoti, which diffuses light from the transcendental body of the Lord. And the same light is reflected in varieties of light. The light of the sun, the light of the moon, the light of fire, or the light of electricity. So the identity of the self as being unconnected with the Supreme Self, the Lord, is illusion. And the false claim, I am the Supreme, is the last illusory snare of the same Maya, or the external energy of the Lord. Does everybody understand that? By visual, we can understand from Shastra that we can see the sun and moon, we can see all luminous objects in this world. It's coming from the supreme luminous object, ultimately, through the Brahma Jyoti. So similarly, our existence is coming from that supreme self as well. That's what it's saying. Similarity. And then in the fourth paragraph, the independence of the individual living entity is not real independence, but is just a reflection of the real independence existing in the Supreme Being, the Lord. The false claim of supreme independence by the conditioned soul is illusion, and this is the conclusion is stated in this verse. And there's many, shall I read them all? Or is everybody convinced? Okay, so we'll leave it at that. So
Maharaj, we are like, we don't understand that what independence, we think what independence we have is real independence. As you say, it's illusion. It's not the real independence.
Nobody's independent, only Krishna. Well, how can we say we're independent, when we, when the forces of nature call, we have to go to the bathroom, so we're not independent of the laws of nature. If we get toothache, there's nothing we can do about it except have the tooth out on. Things are happening to us that mean that we're being controlled.
But unfortunately, we don't see it. Most of the times we think we are independent. We don't understand that.
That's the reflection in the darkness of ignorance.
That's right.
If we're not reflected, if we're not covered by the darkness of ignorance, our reflection in this world is real. We're acting on the proper platform.
Yeah.
We're fully illuminated with knowledge. That's the point it's making.
Thank you, Maharaj.
In the darkness of ignorance of the material world, that's it. We're reflected into that. And therefore we don't understand things properly. Okay, so let's go on to 35. So now we've talked about jnanam and now vijnanam, how to understand that, realization by practical analysis and experience. So these are the first two answers to the Catur Sloki given by the Supreme Lord. Then it talks about, in 35, it comes to Prema Bhakti, and that's amazing that who would have actually said that this talks about Prema Bhakti when we read the translation. Would somebody like to read translation to 35?
O Brahma, please note that the universal elements enter into the cosmos and at the same time do not enter into the cosmos. Similarly, I myself also exist within everything created, and at the same time, I am outside of everything.
Would anybody like to explain that?
It's like the 9th chapter we read about Krishna is like the thread in the garland of the pearls. Though he is in everything, but he is separate, but he is the support of everything.
Yeah, that's is the support. This is more like all the elements are there to start with. He is the elements. And when he enters into the elements, it's him entering, super souls entering into the elements. It's like everything's him. He's simultaneously in the element. He is the element, so I can enter into himself. He's already there. So that's what it's saying. He's already everywhere anyway. But particularly the acharyas have not gone to that. They've not gone into that. What the acharyas are saying is that just like the living entity and all the material elements are in this material world, so this is the manifestation of the material world, but still Krishna is different and is in the heart of all living entities. And when he reveals himself, we can experience that love of God, which is called Prema Bhakti. Because in this translation to text 35, if we read the, let's have a look. No, to 35, is it? Yeah. It's talking about what it said in verse 31. Rahasyam. Rahasyam means, Prema Bhakti, devotional service, pure devotional service.
Maharaj, Rahasyam literally means secret, isn't it?
Secret, yeah. It's a secret to everybody. The secret that Krishna's in the heart also.
Is that because Krishna expands himself but still retains his original form? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, super soul is expansion. But it's talking about, Krishna from within the heart can reveal Prema Bhakti. He can reveal his relationship with us. We can experience Prema Bhakti when Krishna sees that we're fit to receive it. What's that verse? Keshamevanakampatam ahamagyantam tamha asyamatma bhavasto jnana dipena bhavastaha. He says, I dwell within the heart, destroy with the shining of noise the darkness born of ignorance. This reflection. So Krishna can do that personally, and we can understand immediately our relationship with him.
That is us then reflecting in the light of Krishna, is that right? As opposed to reflecting in the darkness of Maya, the material.
Here comes the sun. You remember this? By George Harrison.
Yes.
The son of Krishna is that illumination.
So we're seeing the reality when we see with that vision.
Yeah, when Krishna illuminates due to our devotional service, due to our tapasya, he gave Brahma the ability to see the Vaikuntha, the planets and the entities. So by our tapasya, by our intense devotional service, it pleases Krishna. He can reveal, his own personality, his own entourage, his own abode and everything, and reveal our relationship with him. So it's a very practical process. How serious we are will depend on what we get.
Can I ask you a question that's often come to my mind? That is to do with Prabhupada once said, I could turn to his devotees, make the whole world Krishna consciousness in so many days, but you're not yet ready for
it. One pure devotee of the Lord can purify the whole universe in that respect. To get to that platform, it's purity. Yeah, if we're a serious devotee, if he's completely depending on Krishna, he becomes as powerful as Krishna wants him to be. That's the point. Krishna can give him so much power to do anything.
As long as it's used correctly.
Yeah, nimitra matram. But if we're actually not on that platform of, we'll misuse it and we'll become puffed up and we'll even destroy our own devotional service. So, there's no limit to what we can do for Krishna if we put ourselves into a position to be empowered by him, by our surrender to him.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
But
This
it
is the
doesn't-
red nectar of instruction, isn't it, Maharaj? The attitude, the advancement of the devotee depends on the attitude of the devotee. You mentioned in nectar of instruction beginning.
Yeah, advancements dependent on our serious attitude. So, you know, that's what we're after. As soon as it dawns on us what the reality is, we're still in the shadow of ignorance to some degree. As soon as that ignorance, as soon as we can see through that ignorance, we'll just fully surrender. But, you know, it takes time because we have to work through a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? We're carrying a lot of baggage. It's like, you know, in an air balloon. If you're in an air balloon and you're going towards a mountain, you know, you've got to check all the ballast out. No matter how valuable it is, because if you don't, then you're going to crash into the mountain. So it's the same in devotional service. We've got to get rid of all the ballast, which is holding us to this material world. Anyway, that's a rough example. Anyway, so that's verse. What's it say? Yeah. So, Prema Bhakti. Then the last one is talking about. Anybody guess what this last one's talking about? '36.
You already mentioned that. Sadhana Bhakti.
Sadhana Bhakti. A person who is searching after the supreme absolute truth. That's us, or we should be. The personality of Godhead must certainly search for it up to this, in all circumstances, in all space and time, both directly and indirectly. Directly, according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, means positive devotional service, and indirectly means giving up material activities. Okay.
Can you repeat that, Maharaj? What did Bhaktivinoda Thakur said?
Bhaktivinoda Thakur, is it mentioned? These two are ways for becoming free of anarthas, directly by following the rules and indirectly by following the restrictions.
Okay.
So it's like chanting Hare Krishna and following four regulative principles. Okay. So anyway, that's the seed verses in a nutshell. And these are what Lord Brahma heard. This is the Bhagavatam that Lord Brahma heard. So this is the Bhagavatam that he also spoke to Narad. And we'll read about that in a little while. Okay. So we're on to 34. Sorry, we're on to 37. So we don't have to read that. So at that point, Lord Brahma lost the association of Lord Vishnu. He'd spoken the Bhagavatam in the Catur Sloki. So now, you know, he was the creator of the unit. He began the ability to create. He knew what his job was, to create a situation where living entities can populate this material world and practice, ultimately, come to the point of practicing devotional service so they can get out of it. So, you know, Brahma understood that. And now he'd been given all the paraphernalia, which was spoken of in 31. Jnanam paramam guyame. It is a necessary paraphernalia. So then the Catur Sloki comes to an end. And it says, because Narada was actually very surrendered to Brahma, Brahma then spoke it to Narada Muni.
Please, could you give me the meaning of Catur Sloki?
Yeah, the 4 seed verses. Chatura means 4, Sloka means verse. So if we go to 44 and 45, this is an interesting section. That will bring us to the end of chapter 9. It says, thereupon, the supplementary Vedic literature Srimad Bhagavatam was described by the personality of Godhead, in which contains 10 characteristics, was told with satisfaction by the father, Brahma, to his son Narad. So it's mentioning 10 characteristics now. So in the next chapter, we'll start to speak about these 10 characteristics which are included in this Catur Sloki. So I've in the purport, if you go 5 lines down of text 44, it says one should not misunderstand by wrong interpretation that the Lord spoke only 4 verses, and that therefore all the rest of the 17,996 verses are useless. The 10 characteristics, as will be explained in the next chapter, require so many verses just to explain them properly. Brahmaji had also advised Narad previously that he should expand the idea he had heard from Brahmaji. So that's our process. In the 3rd verse of the Bhagavatam, it says, it talks about how this is subject matter is passed down. Now it becomes sweeter when it's passed on. When it's touched by the beak of the parrot Shukadeva Goswami, it becomes sweeter, because then Sutta Goswami and all the sages on the Ganges, they understand it. It's expanding. And then they speak it in such a way so that their disciples can understand it. So it has to be, we know that, to preach in society now, if we just spoke the Bhagavatam, would it make much effect? We've got to expand so much just to get one point across. So this is what it's saying. So Brahmaji is asking Narad to preach, expand the idea. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed it to Rupa Goswami in a nutshell. But the disciple Rupa Goswami expanded this very elaborately. And the same subject was further expanded to Jiva Goswami and further to Vishwanath Chakravarti. So this is a process. We are just trying to follow in the footsteps of these authorities. So Srimad Bhagavatam is not like an ordinary fictional mundane literature. It is unlimited. It is unlimited in strength, and however one may expand it according to one's own ability. Bhagavatam still cannot finish by such expansion. It's a sound representation of the Lord. And although it's explained in these 4 verses, this is just a seed of many, many explanations. He says in 4 billion verses, all the same, inasmuch. So that's one thing. And then we talk about the disciplines in verse 35. Somebody wants to read the purport? The translation, that's about... can you read? Yeah. Glory to
The 45 Maharaj?
Yeah.
In succession, O King, the great sage Narada instructed Srimad Bhagavatam unto the unlimitedly powerful Vyasadeva, who meditated in devotional service upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, on the bank of the river Saraswati.
Yeah. So then, Narad, so here I'll just go into the 2nd paragraph. And it starts with, halfway down, it starts with Narada Muni. So does somebody want to read that? Narada, if you've got it. Sri Narada Muni.
Sri Narada Muni, as the spiritual master of Vyasadeva, knew very well the position of Vyasadeva, and thus he certified the qualities of Srila Vyasadeva as fixed in the absolute truth, with great vow, etc. Narada advised meditation upon the transcendental activities of the Lord.
Okay, so just stop there. So he understood that Vyasadeva is competent to understand Srimad Bhagavatam. He just told him to include the Lord more in the so, you know, he's just telling him to, you've got the ability to expand this, get on with it, you know. So he's, in that way, he's speaking Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay? Impersonal Brahman has no activities, but the personality of God has many activities. And all such activities are transcendental without change of material form. So, anyway, I think we don't need to go any further into that. And then there's verse 46, where Shukadeva Goswami now says that, O King, your questions as to how the universe became manifested from the gigantic form of the personality of Godhead, as well as other questions, I shall answer in detail by explanation of the 4 verses already mentioned. So now we're going to get into creation again. So we won't spend too much time on that, because we've dealt with it to some degree in the, you know, rest of the 2nd chapter. Most of what's in the 10th chapter we've already gone over, so it'll just be, we'll flit through that. And then it'll carry on from there in the 3rd chapter about creation, right up to the 10th chapter, so we won't spend a lot of time on that either. Only what we need to do. But do you want to finish the 10th chapter now? I think we'll just do it, wait while next week. We won't rush it in, take us time. But we haven't covered a lot there, but because it's a seed verse, I thought it would be good to understand, you know, what it means by speaking the Bhagavatam and these 4 Sitas as being the Bhagavatam. You know, the intelligence of Lord Brahma could understand that. Narad could understand. Vyasadeva could understand. So they were told to expand it according to their intelligence. But then he starts to speak the whole Bhagavatam to Shukadeva Goswami. And like that. It's a natural thing, isn't it? According to a person's receptivity, you give knowledge suitable. So, you know, we have to give a lot of knowledge in this age of Kali. But actually, most people are not even interested in that. So what we're having to do to preach, we're having to preach in so many ways, just to get them interested in reading the Bhagavatam for the first thing. You know, you ask anybody to come to a Bhagavatam discourse, and everybody's looking at the watch. Oh, is that the time already? Must fly. I say this afternoon, I got a bit of, you know, we're getting a bit worn down with all this philosophy. I was thinking, you know, this is getting on top of me as well. And then I saw him in mobile, you know, I don't know how he got there, but it was George Harrison. I thought, let me have a listen to George Harrison for 5 minutes. This was yesterday, and I listened to one record after another about it, you know, because he was preaching through his records. And I was fired up like anything after listening to those records. So I saw George Harrison as an expansion of the Srimad Bhagavatam, you know, for me. Actually, in his songs, if you read his lyrics, they're very Krishna conscious.
Yeah.
And there was one there, and he'd done a little film to it. It was called I don't know whether anybody's heard any of George Harrison's records after he started associating with Srila Prabhupada and the movement. But one, they call it, what they call it? Crackerjack Castle or something. Has anybody heard that?
No.
He left. I'll send it to you all. But anyway, all you have to do is go online, type in George Harrison, and you know, go onto his. You can hear the lot there. But there's another one which really. There's quite a few which really influenced me. You know, just a few simple words. So you know, and there's no wonder Prabhupada, when Prabhupada was at the end of his life. You know, there were all the devotees gathered, all the, you know, the big guns, Rama Krishna, you know, and so Prabhupada took off his ring. You know, he was very weak, and he reached up and he gave it to Tamal Krishna, and he said, "Give this ring to George." This is how much he thought about him.
Amazing. My husband always asked what happened to Prabhupada's rings, and you've just answered that.
Yeah, so you can imagine how much inspiration that gave him.
Yeah, amazing.
And actually, one of his records is called the Serving the Man from the Far East, or something like that. From the Guru from the Far East, or the person from the Far East. And when he's singing, he's talking about his indebtedness to Prabhupada. He says, "How can I let him down?" This is a chorus verse. You know, how can I let him down? So, you know, he was thinking about Prabhupada all the way through his life. And then I came across another one. It was an interview with his wife. It was just for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And he actually was going deeper and deeper into his Krishna consciousness. You know, it weren't that he were actually out there in Maya. And he said himself, he showed a little clip of talking to him. He says, when I'm in these gardens, this is at his Friar Park mansion, he says, you know, I feel really happy. He says, as soon as I go out of those gates, I think to myself, what the hell am I doing here? So it weren't that we were behind closed doors in Maya, but actually. And, you know, his record, and she said that he was saying, he said, we cannot understand God at the end of life unless we practice during our life. He said, we intensely practice remembering him throughout our life. See, that was his life, he was doing that.
He was through the most terrible events that happened, wasn't it? Like his wife, where they were attacked by some burglar or something in the house, and he was stabbed. And it was from that experience that they went somewhere, I don't know, it was like an island, and he went very, very much into himself, didn't he? You know, for quite long periods of time, you know, like you said.
Well, you know, I heard one lecture about his lifestyle, and he said that he used to get up in the morning, didn't say what time, but it says he didn't come out of his room while 12 o'clock midday. He says all that time, all the morning was spent in his own activities. No.
Nice.
And he was a very straightforward person as well. He said what he thought. He did it in the right way, but you know, he weren't actually looking for any position or any pat on the back from anybody. But you know, Prabhupada liked him actually. He says, I've analysed his character. This is a very nice person.
Clever. Thank you.
If you want to become Krishna conscious, just get the albums out, George. And I'll tell you something, after I'd listened to him yesterday, my japa, it was really fired up this morning. So, you know. Every each to his own. We have to see, you know. And I realized, I thought, you know, it's how, what inspires us in Krishna consciousness. You know, obviously Prabhupada's books are the main inspiration, But we have to also see that, you know, there's certain things that inspires us in our devotional service. And I think mine is it like music, you know, kirtan, things like that. When I hear good lyrics and good kirtan or whatever, it's very inspiring.
Maharaj, when you're dancing, there's no stopping. I mean, the energy you have is incredible.
Yeah, it's quickly going on the plug hole.
Oh dear, what had happened?
But anyway.
Isn't it right, Maharaj? When George Harrison was in his like, you know, I say, when he was, you know, leaving his body, Shyam Sundar Prabhu was at his bedside?
Yes, I heard that, you know, Shyamasundar, Gurudas, there were a couple of devotees. It maybe Gurudas, yeah.
So he had a great association in the right at the last minute.
I mean, just imagine, you know, we've had this pandemic, and you know, I'm used to traveling a little bit and going to temples and visiting people in their homes. You know, quite a varied association, and you know, a lot of devotees like yourselves are out in the sticks, and you know, if he can do it, we can think that if he can do it, although it's so difficult when we're on our own, then you know, we can do it. Not that we should, you know, isolate ourselves. We should get as much association as possible. But at the same time, you know, we can understand that there's a if we apply if we're serious, then Krishna will help us from within the heart, you know. Somehow or other, we have to keep ourselves inspired. And we have to do what we need to do to keep inspired. And that may be different for different devotees. We're not all the same. It's not, you know, some devotees are really into studying, some devotees are not. It's not a sign of advancement necessarily. It's Gyan. We'll read in the third canto about Maitreya and Uddhava and the difference between them, and why Lord Krishna was speaking more to one than the other on this same topic. So, you know, Krishna sees everything as the same, whatever service it is. And so if it's done for the satisfaction of the Lord and it's according to authorized process, then, you know, we can be sure that we're pleasing Krishna. So we should, you know, George Harrison found his niche. His niche was he was a great musician. He wrote, you know, when I went through the songs that he wrote many, many songs. And most of them were really good tunes. And so he found his niche, you know, and his next thing was gardening. He was probably, I don't know whether he was growing vegetables or what, but it kept him enlivened in his devotional activities. But anyway, we've gone over a little bit, but...
Thank you, Maharaj. That was very nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so...
Thank you, Maharaj.
So,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Sunday.
Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Jai.